Hello, learning nerds, and welcome on in to the nerdiest video you're going to see today. And on today's episode, I want to talk a little bit more about the state of a job market with instructional design and with learning and development, because I keep on getting a similar question in my inbox, and it goes something along these lines of, Luke, I'm thinking about transitioning over into instructional design, but I've done my homework, and what I keep on hearing about is that the market is too saturated. It's too competitive. What do you think? What should I do? So let me give you the clear and definitive answer of, is the market too saturated? Yes and no. Exactly. That's what you were hoping for inside of this video. It's a little bit trickier to explain about though, and I want to share with you all perspectives so that way you have more of an understanding about what is exactly happening from all different sides of the story. Now, I'm going to make an educated guess that one of the very first things that you did when thinking about trying to transition over from one field into another is that you probably tapped into your network and reached out to someone who's currently an instructional designer. And my best guess is that your conversation went along the lines about, tell me, how did you get to where you are today? What's something that you wish you knew about before becoming an instructional designer? And do you have any tips for me about how I can do this and how I can become an instructional designer? And once again, my best guess, what you have probably heard about, is that this person told you that they fell into the role by accident. They never planned on becoming an instructional designer. They had no goals or dreams or aspirations about doing this someday. They never grew up saying, I want to become an instructional designer. Instead, they led an initiative at work. They started to host trainings and workshops. They put together different forms of documentations and materials and guides and thinking about new processes. And then all of a sudden, before they knew it, one thing happens to another. And then, hey, they're an instructional designer. And the thing is, this really isn't that uncommon of a story. It's actually so uncommon that there's an entire book about this called The Accidental Instructional Designer by a friend of the show, Cami Bean. And the thing is that when I was first trying to become an instructional designer a decade ago, is that when talking with people, I heard these exact same things of like, oh, well, I didn't go to school to become an instructional designer. It kind of just happened. Or I was in some type of a related position and it was close enough and they just kind of gave me the job. I kept on hearing these stories, but I was thinking about it where I was like, so what do I do? I'm intentionally trying to become an instructional designer. So what steps do I take? And I was given a whole bunch of different pieces of somewhat helpful advice as far as trying to be able to do this. And one of the things, of course, that I was thinking about back in 2013 was that, I should go back to school. So hence I go to Google and I look it up. And at the time, there were 2 instructional design degrees that were offered. One really wasn't that flexible. One really wasn't that affordable. So I was like, I guess I'm not going to go back to school. Instead, I need to find another kind of option. So since going back to school wasn't an option, I had to definitely get creative. Of course, fired up the old Google machines, and definitely I taught myself through a lot of blogs and articles and books, and that's kind of the way that I went about with all of these things. Shout out, by the way, to Chrissy Tucker and Connie Malamed, because they have had their blogs up for quite some time, and they still do. They're still active. They're still sharing amazing resources. If you have not checked out their types of blogs, highly recommend for you to be able to do so. But at the time, I did not have all of these different forms of resources like with what you currently have. And that's what's really interesting. If you want to be able to do an activity with me for a second, talking about instructional design degrees, take out your phone and Google instructional design degrees and count how many different advertisements are popping up before you actually hit the first organic search that are talking about degrees. It's crazy. This did not exist back in 2013. And I think that's one point I'm really trying to be able to hit home with you, is that so many things did not exist back then, and then now you do have them. Think about every type of way for you to learn about instructional design nowadays, from courses to trainings to programs to books and webinars and workshops and YouTube and podcasts and you name it. There are 1,000 different ways for you to learn about instructional design, which is amazing. And really, this is all in all a sign of the times about thinking about this from a supply and demand perspective. The job market keeps on going up as far as for posting new types of instructional design related positions and ID positions. And it's really because of the fact we can certainly trace the origin back to 2020 and because of the pandemic. During that time frame, everyone actually learned about what the heck instructional design was. And mainly, this is because of the fact that we began to actually say different forms of terms like remote learning and remote working, and then emergency learning, high flex learning, and eventually this transitional period into now having an instructional designer on the team became a normal part of the process. And this meant that every organization was hiring for an instructional designer, and they still are right now. I have seen job postings from Apple and Google and Tesla and Twitter and Spotify and Amazon, and of course, breaking into the sports world, which still I'm trying to wrap my head around this, of knowing that the Denver Broncos had an instructional designer. There's currently an instructional designer on the New York Jets. There is a designer on the Portland Trail Blazers. There is a UK football club that also has a designer. It's crazy, and it keeps on growing. So this is a sign of the times that, yes, these jobs are going to keep on coming about. But now, since there are so many ways to learn about instructional design, well, obviously, this has increased the level of competition. So I think it's safe to say that now we are ushering in a new age of the intentional instructional designer. For folks like yourself who are watching this video, you are easily going to become more educated than for many other people before who fell into this role by accident and then they had to learn along the way. You're coming in with these different forms of prerequisites and knowledge that for many of us, we learned literally on the job. The idea of going to school to get a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD in instructional design, not as common. Now, of course, I need to be able to say, are there going to be outliers? Absolutely. Positively. I had someone just last week email me, say that she just became an accidental instructional designer. She fell into this role and she's like, what do I do next? And I'm like, okay, so this is still a thing. People can still do this. However, I think now for most folks, they are intentionally trying to be able to do this. And this is where I think there is a bunch of confusion, is that for a lot of people, if you read stories and you talk to people and hear about how they got to where they are today, it was more of those different types of accidental-ish paths. But that's changed. And it's changed, of course, rapidly. I mean, 2020 was not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. Instructional design has been around for decades upon decades. This isn't new by any means in any way, shape, or form. But figuring out how to transition over into this field, this is kind of a newer thing. And what I keep on seeing on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatnot is that people will be asking about, here are all my qualifications, here are my credentials. Am I ready to become a designer? I guess is one way of being able to say it. And in, a couple of years ago, maybe that would have been enough. But now I don't think so. And now that's where this idea of the competition, the saturation, now this is starting to make sense about everything because you're realizing you need to do more to stand out from the crowd. And what maybe would have been plenty before, well, now it's different. And now you need to be able to really make yourself pop out compared to the other different forms of applicants. So with all of that said, let me give you a hiring manager's perspective so that way you know a little bit more about what we're kind of going through. Because I have talked with many hiring managers over the last couple of years and trying to be able to help pair them with instructional design, aspiring instructional designers. And I've heard some of the same different forms of common themes. So I want to be able to share that with you. And certainly what I've been hearing about does align with my own types of experiences when I was hiring for a designer on my team about a year ago. And this is kind of how it went, is that once I posted the job, I talked with a whole bunch of people about it. And then I received the amount of applicants and how many people applied for the job. And then it was essentially me and scrolling through 93 pages to be able to see who should be joining the team, who is really going to help us with trying to be able to solve our problem and to help with everything for the entire design process. And for many of the applicants, they had similar education, they had similar trainings, but what really did stood out, and this is one of the tips to be able to share with you, that I was like, oh, I want to learn more about this. I need to talk with this person, was when people submitted their portfolios and I could actually see what they were working on. Now, of course, this is going to be something that is not, trying to phrase this correctly, it's not required of you, I guess is the best way of saying it, but I would strongly recommend it because you want something that is going to showcase your abilities and what you could bring to the table, what you can bring to the team. In some cases, for some people, they're trying to be able to see different forms of ideas come through that already exist on the team, and they're going to say like, fantastic, you have scenario-based learning and project-based learning, and you worked on this type of course and this type of experience, well then fantastic, come on in. This is really going to be able to help us out with everything. And then for some other different forms of instances, it's like, oh, our team doesn't have that skill set or that. And yeah, we want to be able to talk with this person more and see if this could really help to boost the team with all these other different forms of areas. And how to do this, by the way, I beg of you, as you are making your portfolio, please do not just have screenshots and then send it over. I don't know what this represents. Yeah, as a hiring manager, as I'm looking at screenshots, I'm like, well, it's pretty. It's there. I'm like, but other than that, this doesn't tell a story. I want to know so much more of the behind the scenes of what exactly was involved in this type of design. And I actually lay out for you in the latest blog post that I put out there that was called So You Want to Become an Instructional Designer. I list every step for you when making your portfolio. If you haven't checked out that blog post, please go down to the show notes and read that. That's going to greatly help you with a number of different areas. But to try to be able to summarize it is that when you are describing the projects that you are working on, you are giving a summary of what is the project actually about. There is an introduction. There's talking more about your role on the project. How did you actually contribute? What did you do? Who were the stakeholders? What was the problem you were trying to be able to solve with training and with education? Giving all of this information about the scenario, and then you can talk more about how you then actually thought about the learning experience. How did you really design it? How did you fully build it out? What forms of learning strategies did you use? What did you actually incorporate? And then talking about the results and the evaluation process. What were the findings? What would you do differently the next time? And then trying to be able to include, at that point, the screenshots, the different forms of artifacts, and any other different forms of supportive material. Then sure, include it, but you need that story around it. Your portfolio is a storytelling element because you are sharing more about you and what you can bring to the team. And if you are starting from the ground up, by the way, you probably already have something as far as for putting together a portfolio piece, and you probably just don't know it yet. We've talked about that a lot on the podcast. I'll include some different types of links about how to essentially get projects to be able to come in. Most of the time, you've already have some form of a project, and it's more about documentation, and it's more about supporting everything. But if you were really starting from nothing, and then now you're trying to be able to get your very first type of project, well, there are a few different ways of being able to do so. And without going into so many details to make this video like 2 hours long, the best piece of advice that I can give for you right now is to start sharing that you want to go down this instructional design journey with other people, whether this is friends or family or peers or coworkers or colleagues, or sharing about it on LinkedIn, of just telling people that you want to start being able to design meaningful learning experiences and that you're looking to be able to collaborate with another person to be able to do so. For the easiest wins, it's obviously going to be with volunteering. I certainly started out that way. You might doing that as well too. That could be the path for you to be able to take. If you want to go down the actual freelance road and getting paid and everything else, it is a whole different path for you to be able to go down. So I want to do some glossing over just like some general overview guidelines, is that if you're looking to be able to work with folks to get a project and you're volunteering your time with things, you are going to be so surprised by how many people, especially nowadays in 2023, want to be able to have these different forms of courses and trainings and programs and other different forms of offerings, and they just have no idea how to do it, where to start, and hey, that's where you come in. And I've talked with people who have written books before and they want to be able to create a type of a follow-up course to everything, or they have their own form of a coaching type of side hustle, and now that keeps on growing, and now they want to be able to put together some type of a live offering to go with it. And you'll be surprised by how many people really would love your help with things. Of course, do not get taken advantage of. Make sure that you are doing something that is a very small win, especially if you are volunteering. If this is going to be a much larger project and it's for an organization, and then let's think more about the freelance side of the house. I'll include more links in the show notes for you if you're going down that path, because that's a whole different ballgame. Okay, so portfolio, how to be able to get some of the artifacts. Then from there is to really hammer home building out your network. And I know that I've talked about this quite a bit on this channel and on the podcast, is the importance of connections. It's the importance of your network and this entire idea of digging the well before you are thirsty. You want to be able to really build out this network before you start asking for favors and before you start going around with trying to be able to have people to help you out with your entire job search. What is the best way of being able to do this? For me personally, it's LinkedIn. 100%, without a doubt. Almost all my efforts nowadays are on LinkedIn. And whenever I'm training people to be able to start building out essentially their own brand, and we're starting from scratch, we're trying to be able to really create that network, LinkedIn is going to be the way to go. Almost everyone I can think of in an organization nowadays is on LinkedIn. It's kind of become like the professional Facebook in nature. Yeah, something like that is how I would describe it nowadays. So everyone has a LinkedIn. On top of that, which is going to be the hugest part for this, is that as you keep on growing out the network, as you keep on connecting with people, whether it's going to be with virtual coffee chats or messaging or just commenting on their posts or sharing their materials or whatever it is, the more that you can actually create those different forms of connections, those are the people who you want to be able to follow, because I promise you, when they have a job posting on their team and then they're going to share it as soon as it comes out, HR is telling them to, hey, spread the word with their network. And sure enough, you're going to be a part of that network. And therefore, you have a much better chance of being able to connect with this person to learn more about the organization, the culture, what it's like working there. Tell me more about the job. If you can get that inside scoop, that's greatly going to help you out for applying to different types of instructional design jobs. Not to mention, too, maybe these connections become your references. Maybe they're going to be able to really give you that advantage and that edge compared to other different forms of applicants. So it does not hurt to being able to do that. This actually greatly helped me when I was first applying for instructional design jobs, and I was using the feature that was new at the time of apply with LinkedIn to the different jobs. And when I was applying with jobs, what it would say at the time was how many of my connections worked at those organizations, and then I could follow up with those people to be able to say like, hey, just wanted to let you know I applied for this job over here for this team. Could you tell me anything more about the department, about this team? It'd be really awesome if I can learn a little bit more about anything that you're willing to share. Hey, speaking of LinkedIn, by the way, before I forget to say this, that applicant number in the top right-hand corner when you go and you look at a job, that is not how many people applied. I don't know why this is how it's labeled as, but the truth is that that's how many people clicked on the job posting and went through and saw it like that. but not physically applying and going through all of the stages. So especially too, when you see some jobs, like if there's a job at Amazon and all of a sudden there's an instructional design position that pops up and you see it and you look at it 1 second and then like 5 minutes later, there's 1,000 applicants and you're like, well, guess that's not for me. And you kind of just like move on. Well, that's also why. Wanted to make sure that I mentioned about that too, because it's super confusing and really annoying. So just wanted to make sure that you're aware about that. And the final thing, folks, if I can just be real with you for a second here, even if you do all those things I just mentioned, and even if you're doing everything correctly, you are upskilling like crazy. You're taking every course, you're reading every book, you're going to every seminar, you're doing every single thing right. And sometimes it still just takes a long time. And that's just the truth. For some of them, you're going to apply to jobs and hear nothing back. From sometimes you're going to be applying and then you had an interview or two, and then same thing, you feel like you got ghosted. And you're like, did I do something wrong? Did something happen? And I experienced this quite a bit. If you know my story, you know that it took me a long time to finally become an instructional designer. And I went through all the same motions and all the same feelings that you are currently going through right now. And to put it bluntly, it sucks. Like applying to job after job after job and not seeing results, it's pretty brutal. It's not a fun time. But the thing that I learned about from so many different failures is that from sometimes you just don't know the full story. And it's kind of tricky to be able to really put together. There was one moment that I still perfectly, is clear inside of my head when I applied for a job and it was for in person and I went in. It was awesome. Everything was great. I had multiple rounds of interviews and I was just like, oh, this is like, I got it. Like, this is perfect. We're all on the same page. Life is good. Can't wait to start working at this place. And then nothing, nada. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, what did I say? Like, of course, I'm overanalyzing everything. I was like, I must have made someone mad. Like, what did I do? And then come to find out about 4 months, 5 months later, I get an email. And the email was just like, Luke, we're so sorry, but you didn't get this message, and I just noticed, and now I'm following up with you. Like, okay, like what happened? And it turns out one of the significant people who were involved in the hiring process got into a car accident. It was crazy. It was a serious car accident. And of course, the team was just like, we're done. Like, we need to focus on our person, make sure that they're doing okay. And then maybe we'll get back to this and we'll kind of figure it out. And that email never reached me. And this person, a very kind person at this organization, reached out to me months later, just basically saying, you should have received this email. So sorry. It got lost. It wasn't sent. We don't know what happened, but we just wanted to fill you in and let you know. And it was really, this is a story that I think about of just saying, you don't always know what's happening. Things do happen involved with the hiring process. And that while I would like to think that normally these extremes don't happen, there are moments of time where you think it's going grand and smooth and awesome, and then it doesn't pan out. And of course, that is the real world. Once again, I completely sympathize with you. It is super brutal, not fun in any way, shape, or form, but it is a part of this process. It's a difficult process to be able to transition from one job to another, no matter what field or what industry you are going to. But that is a reality of everything with this entire process altogether. So let me leave you with one piece of advice that I think is going to help you out. I know it helped me out in my job search process and really throw everything with my life. And that is to identify with your strengths and to believe in your hard work. Because people will let you down, organizations will let you down, leaders will let you down, but you, your hard work, that will never let you down. You have earned that, and no one can take that away from you. And all things will come in due time. Keep on working hard. Promise you, the reward is going to be worth it. Just keep on sticking to it. And I know you're going to be able to accomplish your goals, whatever they may be. Well, hey folks, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, subscribe to the YouTube channel and comment down below about what you are currently going through, and leave your best tip to help out others throughout this entire job search process. If you have any questions for me, as always, you can connect with me over on LinkedIn, and you can always shoot me over an email, luke@drlukehobson.com. But hey, folks, that is all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there. Talk to you next time.